everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. I apologize for the delay. I actually spent, I think, too much time on one thing and ended up actually taking more time than I thought reading the news. And again, I prefer to at least, I think, understand or comprehend what I'm reading before I share it with you. So, diving right into it today, if you know about John Williams, he's the president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He recently said in a speech that he sees room for further adjustment in the near term. And this was something that I watched on Bloomberg television. So basically, what he said is something that caused, I guess, a reaction in the market, right? So, according to CNBC, in an article by Jeff Cox, uh, he says stocks rallied Friday, turning around after Williams' comments caused a repricing toward the expectation of a rate cut in December. And like I said before, until it actually happens, it's just speculation to me. And as far as now, since we're on stocks, apparently, according to multiple sources I've noticed, but the AP, Associated Press, in an article by Stancho, apparently there was like a potential bubble in AI technology. And I think it was also the AP. I think actually, no, it might have been Reuters, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. There's an article called Bubble Trouble. And there's this, the article was written by, I'm probably not going to say his name right. I sure hope I do. Saqib, I'm just going to say his first name. His last name is Ahmed. So apparently there were questions about whether or not these AI investments will translate into actual profit. And I want to be careful here because while this article, does raise some, I think, interesting questions, I want to be mindful of whoever's listening to this video right now because I'm really not here to, stoke fear or cause a reaction. Um, so one other thing that stood out to me, well, there were a couple other things, but I feel like this one is more so a transition to the next thing. So apparently, investors are wary of risks around capital spending and financial um, challenges in expanding data center capacity and amid energy constraints and memory chip shortages. And that takes me to um, the what's it called? The forum President Trump went to, looks like Saudi Arabia. So I'm just going to say this. President Trump delivers remarks at the US Saudi Investment Forum. So that was the video I watched from the White House, posted it up. So apparently there was a strategic economic partnership that was signed with investment agreements and projects that include sectors such as defense, energy, AI, rare minerals, and finance. And sounds like when I was listening to President Donald J. Trump, he also included civil nuclear energy. Now, he also mentioned that Saudi Arabia is the biggest major non NATO ally, investing $1 trillion in the US. And he also mentioned $270 billion in sales agreements being signed between companies. Of course, I don't know what companies were there. I'm just going off of the video that I saw, right? And that was the information I was able to gather today. And apparently, so he goes into a few other things I want to touch on, but before I hop off this live stream, because I showed up later and I already told you guys last week that I was gonna be here, albeit I'm late, I'm still here. So according to, well, when I was watching that video, President Trump said that we led, I guess, chips. I think he meant chip manufacturing or production like 30, 40 years ago. And so it sounds like what he's saying suggests like encouraging others to teach the US how to make computer chips. Apparently, we need to learn these things to open up these, the plants, is what I wrote. And that also goes into our previous live streams where I was just saying that, like, it just seems like everything is kind of, it seems like this administration is shaping things up so that, everything supports um, AI being produced in a way that, we're ahead in the AI race. And then, of course, that means data centers. And like that article said earlier, it mentioned, the expansion of, like, it said challenges in expanding data center capacity. So when I was listening to that, it's just interesting because people are concerned about, um, I guess, AI taking people's jobs, right? And like I was saying in the previous video, it just sounds like everything is just set up for a way where your perspective really is going to determine how you I guess, how do I want to say this? Your perspective, I guess, is going to determine what you're really going to think about, like how well or how bad this administration is doing. Me personally, I think that things are just being set up in a way where, yes, this is just my educated guess. It just sounds like, it's going to provide more opportunities for people to be employed in these, um, in either the data centers, even though I don't know how that will work really, um, or even people in AI. Though people might argue that, these companies might, cut, like, reduce costs by, laying off people. So I can see both sides of of this, I don't know, for lack of a better word. I wouldn't call it narrative, but yeah, basically how this thing is going with the data centers and AI. And with that, he also mentioned that wages for hourly workers are rising at the fastest pace in 60 years. He also mentioned that real wages for construction workers are up $2,200 a year. And I thought it was interesting because enough to look up the employment data from the U.S. Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then I remember there was a whole shutdown fiasco that happened last month. Like, I didn't share that story with you. And yeah, there's no data that I found because it was not published and it said so in the website. So, with that being said, he also mentioned that 600,000 Americans were lifted off food stamps. And then I just thought I'd look up, real quick, some statistics with the time that I had. According to Pew Research Center, the reopening of the government fund SNAP through September of next year, so September 2026. And based on the data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, um, the Census Bureau, and other sources. The latest, it seems like the latest data came from May 2025. That was like the most recent month with available figures. And so apparently, 41.7 million people and 22.4 million households receive benefits. And on average, 42.4 million people in 2020, eh, excuse me, an average of 42.4 million people in 22.7 million households received monthly benefits, and that's from the range of October 2024 to May 2025, um, which I meant to look up because it said something about in the article, and I'm just going off of like what I can recall. It sounds like when this started, like in 1974, 75, like about 6% of Americans were on benefits. And I think I went over the numbers last time when I Googled it, but since I'm on my phone right now, I'm not going to do that because I think it'll black out the screen for you guys. If I recall correctly, I think it's around the same number. But of course, like, the population's changed and everything. But anyway, that'd be an interesting thing to look into because, like, I'm just wondering, like, how are there, like, over time, like, are there more people who are on these benefits, and does that indicate how we're doing as a country economically? And so it also said, of course, it also mentioned in the report, I don't know if report for lack of a better word, um, the national average amount of benefits for each person. It says $188.45 a person, $350.89 per household. Of course, that's gonna depend on a state by state basis. And according to, so through the first 8 months of 2025, fiscal 2025, that's what it says, the government spent almost 65 billion in benefits alone and 4.7 more on fiscal 2024. And let's see here. And I have to hop off very soon. So he also mentioned, so going back to the forum, the whatchamacallit, the President Trump delivers remarks at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum, which I actually don't know which day it was. But anyway, he mentioned the one big beautiful bill, and basically we did discuss the changes that we made to the Social Security benefits last time. I don't recall which video that was, nor am I going to get too deep into it. However, he did mention that there were going to be tax cuts taking place on January 1st. No tax on tips, Social Security, overtime, and possible deduction. It sounds like deductions on anyone who um, wants to take a loan on an interest payment on a Tesla. But anyway, I'm curious how the news that I've mentioned affects you. Um, I'm curious about, um, actually, let me think about that. Rather, I'd like to know, um, Like, what are your thoughts about the one big beautiful bill? Do you know much about it? Um, and do you know anyone who is affected by the government shutdown in, like, I think it was, yeah, October? So I wrote it down somewhere. I think that this was the longest shutdown, like about 43 days. So I'm curious to hear what what real people actually experience. Like, how did they actually, like, because I know certain companies, I saw one actually, I shouldn't say companies plural, but one, um, you probably know if you know, they offered to deliver, and I think if I recall correctly, deliver and pay for people's groceries during that time. So I'm curious how people actually, um, you know, made things work during that time, because I can understand that can be very stressful. And so in the One Big Beautiful Bill, he also mentioned, President Donald Trump also mentioned, it sounds like a deductibility for um, businesses and jobs for 1 year. So, expensing for all new equipment purchases, factory construction, and structures. Um, and then he mentioned regulations too. But going back to the AI stuff, like, like he mentioned, it sounds like he's encouraging people to teach the United States how to make chips, right? Like I mentioned earlier. And so he also mentioned that there was going to be a one approving body in the U.S. So whoever it's, I'm just based off of my understanding. So if like other people want to, if other people from other countries want to come here to um, teach us how to manufacture or produce chips, right? Then it sounds like he's just letting them apply once rather than each of the states, which I understand could be a very um, long process, which makes sense. But I'm very curious what you think about Saudi Arabia investing what $1 trillion in the U.S. I'm curious to learn where exactly that 1 trillion is going to go. And when I mentioned the the whole thing with the chips, people coming here to the U.S., how what do you guys think about that? Um, Do you think that this will offer new job opportunities for people, or do you really think that, or do you think that this AI thing is really is not going to benefit? Or I want to be careful because I have like I really need to leave soon. Um, or do you think that the data centers, the whole thing with the AI race, do you really think it's going to benefit people? Because it seems like the whole thing is geared toward, creating something that just seems more intelligent than man, which I don't think is, well, it's not human. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. Leave your comment in the chat. I've got to go. Have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.